Big congratulations, Nigeria and all Nigerians all over the world. We celebrate our independence today, 57 years after leaving colonial rule. And I want to congratulate and celebrate every one of us for being united as a nation. You know, even with the ups and downs we've had through the years, we've remained an indivisible nation. And one must congratulate everyone and celebrate it. But then there's an issue that really bothers me, and it borders on the spirit of independence. Can Nigeria really say that we're independent? Can Africa really say that African nations, 54 of them, have gained independence from colonial rule? Can we really call ourselves independent nations? Or is it not true that a bulk of what we consume in Africa comes from outside Africa, and there's no exchange, there's no production commensurate to what we import? Is it not true that milk that we consume in Nigeria comes from Switzerland? Is it not true that the clothes that we wear comes from China? Is it not true that even the grasses now that our livestock feed on come from Brazil? Is it not true that our leaders now pride themselves in how well they've been able to acquire medical help from our colonial masters? And when they return to the country, we organize parties and shows. We line up kids on the streets to clap as the motorcade passes. Is it not true that healthcare in Nigeria is a mess? Is it not true that education in Nigeria is a disgrace? Is it not true that we're not able to provide jobs for at least 30–40% of our workforce? Is it true then that we're independent? I would disagree with you if you say so that we are, because in every sense of it we're not. Yes, we may have some form of democracy that makes us change governments every 4 or 8 years. I won't call that democracy. At best, we could call it kakistocracy, because it appears to be that Africa has had governments of the least qualified people run them. And that is why we can say the same problems in Nigeria is the same we're having in Ghana, is the same we're having in Zambia, is the same we're having in Sierra Leone, is the same we're having in Gabon, virtually all over Africa. And then one could be bothered to think that if those great men who fought for our independence, if Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was alive today, or if he resurrected today, if Obafemi Awolowo was resurrected today, if Sir Ahmadu Bello was alive today, if Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, if he were alive today, if Modibo Keita of Mali were around, if Haile Selassie of Ethiopia were around, if Sylvanus Olympia of Togo was alive, if Kenneth David Kaunda of Zambia, if Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, if Milton Obote of Uganda, if Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, if Felix Houphouët-Boigny of Cote d'Ivoire, if all these men resurrected today, would they be proud of the Africa we have become? Would they be proud of the individual nations we have become? One remembers in our history how in 1963, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the Osage for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, when he had a meeting of the 32 independent African nations at the time, and he said, let Africa come together, let us unite, let us do away with our borders, let us have a single government, let us have a single army, let's have a single currency. Does it make any sense today? You travel from Nigeria to Benin Republic and you have to obtain a visa, you have to change your currency. Then you travel from there a few kilometers into Ghana, then again you have to change your currency. Or you travel just about 30 minutes from Uganda, to Kenya, and there's a different currency. They're asking you for yellow fever papers, they're asking you for visas. I think that Nigeria and Africa is not at ease today. I think we have let our colonial masters down, and this is not a blame on any particular government. This is a problem. This is an African problem that covers virtually all African nations, from Northern Africa to the Central African Republic, to the Western Africa to Eastern Africa. It's the same issue we're having, and then we say we're independent. Museveni was right, president of Uganda, when he said that when African nations compare and compete with themselves, it's like pigs who are competing with themselves, because we're all dwarfs. We cannot mention any African nation today that can compete on the global stage, and that is where Nigerians fall short. The whole of Africa is waiting for Nigeria to take her lead. A country of almost 200 million people, we still import. We've made a $1 billion industry, $1 billion hair industry. Nigerians and Africans are not proud of the hair we have. We have to wear long weaves for us to look like the like the Caucasians. What has happened to our minds? We import virtually everything we cannot produce. We consume what we cannot produce, and we produce what we cannot consume. I think there's got to be a change. There needs to be a change. There has to be a change. And I'm calling on the young Africans all over Africa. We must begin to initiate the change we want to see. We must begin to get the education required for the change. You see, change doesn't come all of a sudden. There must be some work to be done. And that is why we must work now. A few days ago, I have a 4-year-old, and the power went out, and soon after they brought it back, and he screamed, "Oh, light has come." When I heard him scream, I remembered how I was more than 32, 34 years ago as a 4-year-old. The same way I would scream that light has come, that's the same way my son, 34 years after, is screaming that light has come. Does it not show that we are drunk as a people? How can it be that Africa, Nigeria, cannot produce power to power 20% of our population? And we say we're independent. What are we independent from? What are we independent of? And I'm appealing to us, therefore, and submitting to us too, that in as much as we want to celebrate the fact that we do not appear to be directly under colonial rule, it is time for Africa to rise up. It is time for Nigeria to wake up. We must ostracize the mentality of lack, the mentality of begging, the mentality of aid. I will recommend Dambisa Moyo's book, Dead Aid. That book will help you a lot. We must reorganize. We must re-energize our minds. We must redirect our focus. What is the future of Africa that we want? And you know, there's a new goal now for Africa 2063, where we're going back to the same things that Kwame Nkrumah said 100 years ago, 50-something years ago, that Africa should unite. We should have a road linking Nairobi to Uganda. We should have a road linking Lagos to Ghana. We should have railways from Cote d'Ivoire straight to Southern Africa. You know, that is a goal for 2063. But we are the ones who are going to make that happen. If we're going to make that happen, what are we going to do today? We must educate ourselves. Education now is not the education you get from the school alone. We must read. Young Nigerians must study. You must have a copy of your constitution. What does the law say about this and that? What are the duties of the government? What are your own objectives? We must be able to sharpen our minds. We must be able to educate ourselves. We must be able to enlighten ourselves. Only through education can we be emancipated. And that's why I'm calling on every one of us today. As we celebrate our independence, yes, it's good, but we still remain united, even with the issues we're having. But then there's a future we must guard jealously. The leaders of Africa today are not partakers of the future of Africa. We are the ones who are the stakeholders in the 20 years time of Africa, the 30 years time of Africa. The Africa want to bequeath to our children. What is it that we must do now? We must come together as young people across Africa. We must see to it that the true vision of leadership is better in Africa. Like I said before, I don't think we have democracy in Africa. I think it's more of kakistocracy, where we have the least qualified people all over Africa take up leadership. And now is the time for us to change our style of leadership. I believe in democracy, but I also think that we must be able to craft our own kind of government, our own kind of governance. Democracy is for the white man. Yes, we may be able to adopt their democracy, but we must suit it to our Africanness. So we must be able to realize the African dream. We must be able to realize the Nigerian dream. What was the vision of Nigeria at independence? What was the focus? What did our leaders, what did they really want? And so, as much as we may want to glorify them, we call them founding fathers. Really, were they able to bequeath to the next generation after them the dream of Nigeria they had? Were they able to provide leadership? The truth is that they were not. Sadly, one can say, okay, that because of the coups, you know, that synchronized across Africa very early after independence, they were not able to create leadership or to imbibe in their followers leadership. But then We cannot complain about that alone. Yes, we had coups. Yes, we've had tough times. But come on, India has had tough times. Dubai has had tough times. South Korea has had tough times. Singapore has had tough times. Can we continue to accommodate the poor leadership, the poor style of governance in Africa today, and blame the colonial masters? Yeah, no, we cannot, because in a few years' time it won't be tenable. What can we do now? I think young people should rise up to take up leadership positions. It doesn't matter what you think about it. It doesn't matter the challenges that are associated with it. But the truth is that all over the world, there's a wave of leadership. And I think a lot of Nigerians have the capacity, we have the experience, we have the knowledge to birth the Africa of our dreams. Obasanjo cannot today be deciding for the future of Nigeria, because he is not a part of the future of Nigeria. Buhari today is not qualified to talk about the future of Nigeria, because he's not going to be a part of the future of Nigeria. It is our duty, it's our call. It doesn't matter what political party you belong to. It's needless. Now we must break that barrier. There's been a balkanization of the Nigerian youth, along ethnic lines, along religious lines, and now along political lines. It doesn't matter if you're a supporter of the APC or the PDP. It makes no sense, actually. What is politics there for? Isn't that just a platform on which political actors assume power to deploy for the benefit of the people? So there we can put aside the differences. Now, what does Nigeria need? What does Africa need? We need leadership. And now we must take it up. We must also get the required experience, the required education for leadership. If not, we will bequeath to our children the same mess we inherited from our parents. So I submit to you, therefore, today, that as we celebrate our nation 57 years of independence, let us sit down and reason it out. Let us sit down and tweak our consciences. Let us sit down and wriggle our thoughts through. What will be the future of this Africa? What will be the future of Nigeria? Are we going to have a Nigeria in 20 years' time where we're having people from all Western Africa come to Nigeria to school? Are we going to have a Nigeria in a few years' time where we have hospitals of world-class standard? Are we going to have a Nigeria in a few years' time where we have 10% unemployment? Are we going to have a Nigeria in a few years' time where there will be no malaria, there will be no cholera, and all these crazy diseases? If we're going to have such a dream, we must fashion it out. We must we must lay the foundation for such a dream. We do not have to enjoy it. I do not have to be there in 50 years to see that, yes, we'll become a successful continent. Paul planted, Apollos watered, God gave the increase. My children would benefit from what I'm doing today. So what must I do today? What must we do today as young people? What must we do today to see that the future of Nigeria is the future we want to see? There's a lot we must do, and it starts now. We must conscientize ourselves. We must keep talking about it. We must keep expressing ourselves. We must be angry about the situation we find ourselves today. We cannot be complacent. We cannot accommodate it. We must see that it's a problem. Africa is lagging behind at the table of civilization. We are not among those who sit to eat. We are among the waiters. Some even said we are among the food being eaten. What must we do now to change it? That is why I've done this video. Sorry if you're bored by it, but it's not lost on me that I must see myself as a change agent, the kind of change that I want my son to benefit from. I must see myself as a catalyst to produce the Africa, to produce the Nigeria of my dream. I must see myself, and you must see yourself too, as that driving force to produce a viral nation, to produce an active nation, that we cannot be going to the US to beg for aid. We can't be going to the UN to beg for aid. We should get to a point where we're giving aid. We have the capacity. We must get to that level where we stop begging for assistance, stop begging for used clothes, stop begging for food, stop begging. Africa is a beggar continent, and that is why the world makes mockery of us. What can we do? What can we produce? What can we consume that which we produce? We must get to that level where we buy Nigeria, where we buy Africa. We have over 1 billion people on the African continent. How come then are we still as poor as we are? And I think it's a poverty of the mind. We must liberate our minds. We must decolonize our minds from the shackles of colonialism. We must liberate ourselves. We must ascend our reasoning above the level from which we inherited from our parents. We must see to it that the call is ours to the taking. We must build Africa. We must build Nigeria. The time starts now. We will do it. We must do it. If we do not do it, then we will be done. Thank you for your time.